Go live. Good afternoon, everyone. On this, it's called Saturday Morning Business Live, but it's not really morning anymore. It's actually the afternoon, at least here in Texas. So I guess if you're watching this from China, it's still a Saturday Morning Business Live. But hope you're having a great weekend. Today's topic is going to be, when is it okay to interrupt during a conversation? If you're like me, you've probably always heard that don't interrupt, just listen. You have two ears and one mouth, and so you should be listening, not talking. You should be listening. But sometimes when you're listening, you never get a chance to add to the conversation if you just listen, right? And this is especially true if you have 2 or 3 people involved in a conversation. Literally, the conversation could go on for hours without you ever having a chance to say anything. And it may start on one topic, and you may have a thought that you want to share, but then it switches to another topic. And by the time there's a pause in the conversation for you to say something, you've already moved on to a different topic. So when is it okay to interrupt during a conversation? And this is helpful, at least I think, no matter who you're having a conversation with. It could be in business, it could be in your family life, it could be with a client, it could be with your manager. Now, listening is important, but what's even more important than just listening is active listening. But how do you do that exactly, right? And there's some techniques out there, but sometimes you have to interrupt the person that's talking to add to the conversation, and it's okay to do that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And this is outside of those emergency situations where, like, you're interrupting someone because they might get hurt or somebody else might get hurt, and you have to. It's an emergency, and you have to let them know this is just your normal conversation. Okay, so these are 4 ways. 4 ways. It's 4 different reasons that it's okay to interrupt someone. Okay, so the first one, and I have notes on my whiteboard here. I made notes of it. So the first one is to clarify. Sometimes when you're having a conversation and you don't know exactly what the person's talking about, maybe it's a certain location or a certain phrase that is used or a certain person, and you really don't know what they're referring to exactly. It's okay at that point to interrupt them and say, okay, what do you mean by this? What is, or who is that? Or where is that? To get clarification, because if you don't do that, think about it. You're going to end up continuing the conversation, and you're not going to really be tracking exactly what they're talking about because you don't know what a certain area of the conversation means. Okay, so that's one way. Another time when it's okay to interrupt is to agree. Sometimes it's okay to interrupt and say, oh yeah, I agree with that. Or just to show interest that you actually agree with the person that's whatever it is they're saying. So it's okay to interrupt at that time as well. So those are the 2 so far, to get clarification on exactly what they're talking about. It's okay to interrupt to do that. And it's also okay to interrupt during the conversation to agree with what they're talking about. Okay, so and I'm looking up at my whiteboard for those of y'all that are just joining here. The next area where it's okay to interrupt during a conversation is to show interest and enthusiasm. Sometimes when you're involved in a conversation, you're excited about what they're talking about, and it's part of active listening just to show that you're actually interested in what they're talking about. So you can interrupt the conversation to show your enthusiasm and your support for whatever it is they're talking about. Okay, and number 4, because as we mentioned earlier, sometimes you're involved in a conversation and it starts on one topic and then it moves to another topic, and pretty soon for you to go back to that original topic would be kind of odd in the conversation. So it's okay to interrupt to let them know that they've reminded you of something else you want to talk about. So those are the 4 times or 4 ways that it's okay to interrupt a conversation. Okay. And this could be a conversation with one other person or a conversation where there's several people involved. It could be a meeting. And that way you contribute to the conversation. You're actively listening. So here are the 4 ways again. It's okay to interrupt when a person's talking or the conversation, to get clarification, to agree, to show interest and enthusiasm, and lastly, to mention that whatever it is you're talking about reminds you of something else that you would like to share. So those are the four four ways you can interrupt during a conversation, and four ways that are okay to interrupt. So, anyways, I hope you found this business live helpful. Obviously, communication is important when you're dealing with your employees, your family, your managers, dealing with anyone. So, hopefully, you found that helpful. And I would love to hear when you think it's okay to interrupt during a conversation, or maybe there's some other facet of communication that you would like to share in the comments below. Thanks, and have a great weekend.